Okay, we'll call the May 19th Town of Somerville Planning Commission to order. First order of business, the approval of minutes from our meeting of April 21st. Is there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, we'll accept them as distributed. Next, we have some public hearings. The first is a petition by Treat and Woodman LLC to annex TMS number 15200000227 located at Bacon's Bridge Road and Crestwood Drive, totaling approximately 4.7 acres. Currently zoned R2, single family residential in Dorchester County, requested to be zoned MFR, multifamily residential, following annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits. It's in Council District 5. Are the petitioners present?
No, they were not able to be here today.
All right. Did we have anyone wanting to?
Yes, we have Paul Firschner.
Afternoon. Thanks for hearing us. My name is Paul. I go by Bert more often, so feel free to call me that. I do not live in that. I live in that area. I live in Barony Ridge subdivision, which is pretty much directly across the Bacon Bridge Road from the property in question. I don't really have a problem with the annexation other than the fact that I think the only reason the annexation is requested is so that they can request rezoning. I think the rezoning is overbuilt. They're planning to put 30 townhomes in a piece of property that's less than 5 acres. And in our area, and if you ride around and look, we are overbuilding and overstacking homes, putting them on smaller pieces of property and putting bigger homes on smaller pieces of property. And in my opinion, just as a citizen, I think that's overbuild and overreach. And I think that's too much in that small area. But it also negatively impacts the quality of life. I've lived there for about 25 years, raised my children there, and very happy there in Barony Ridge. But the quality of life with increased traffic, but also the environment that will be impacted by this annexation and the rezoning will impact I think the quality of life for all the residents in that area, but also our community. I think putting that number of houses in a small piece of land is not only going to strangle it because of the congestion, but it's going to strangle it with the oxygen. It's going to pull oxygen out of the air because you're going to take out the trees and the greenery and put something there that is going to create more congestion. That leads to my second negative. It's the safety issue. The traffic on Bacon Bridge Road is increasing. Everybody that lives in that area knows that. Coming out of my neighborhood, trying to turn left or right is virtually impossible and almost take your life into your hands by pulling out because there are no stoplights there. Also, having put Somerville Preparatory Academy right there in that very area has increased traffic and increased safety concerns as well. So safety, especially in the morning time and the evening time. Traffic can back up all the way from the Dorchester Road intersection almost to my neighborhood and sometimes beyond that in the evening as well. Also, I don't feel like our law enforcement people are patrolling it. So people are not driving with common sense and they're speeding every step of the way. So it's a huge safety concern for every family and every person that travels that road and lives in that area. And the third thing for me is the environment. This place is right on the Sawmill Branch Trail. I think it will affect the flooding. It will affect the woodland, the Crestwind neighborhood with flooding, which my friend here and I've just been talking about. And I don't think there's enough planning there. When you take out soil, when you put in concrete and you put in more building, it's going to damage the environment. So those are my three main concerns. I wish I could say more. I want to respect my time, but also I'm just concerned about the building in our area in general. We used to be called Somerville in the Flower Town in the Pines. Well, I don't know. Maybe we need to start calling ourselves Flower Town in the Pavement, Flower Town in the building, Flower Town in the subdivision, or maybe even Flower Town in the car washes. Thank you for recognizing that as well. So thanks for listening. I hope you hear, and I hope that I'm not the only one speaking to this, because you've got a lot more people that are concerned about that. And so that's just all I got to say. I got 15 seconds. Any questions? Thank you for tracking with me. Okay. Car washes. Think about that. Thank you.
Next, we have Seth Michael.
Good afternoon. I'm Seth Michael. Go by Seth. Real quick, my wife and I, we bought in the Timberlands area, which is in the back side of Crestwood. We have to go through Crestwood to get out. Is what it is. Bacon's Bridge has gotten huge. Dorchester's gotten huge. We bought in 09, and of course, Somerville's going to get bigger. Our issue is the density of the neighborhood. Okay, if they have several houses in there, not much is going to change. We talk about 30 houses in there. We're talking about 2 cars per house. Now that's an extra 60 cars going in and out. Okay. My other issue is there's a common trend going around with townhouses being bought by single entities and turning them into rentals. We all know that people that own their own homes take more pride in their own homes. There's areas down in Westcott where they have several of these done up, and just single entity came in, bought everything up. My buddy who lives in one of those townhouses has an issue because 40% of his neighborhood is rentals. And that's where all the issues that they're having in that neighborhood. And now the Westcott HOA is fighting to get it from 40% down to 10% rentals. Okay, so that's where I have an issue. We bought in the area hoping to see most of the neighborhood where the owners were the occupiers. Okay, once we have, unfortunately, what's probably going to happen, single entity buy up all those houses, we're going to have some issues. Okay, that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you.
We have Caitlin Scott.
Good to see you all again. Glad we're back here. My name is Caitlin. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and several of the neighborhood neighbors who are elderly and unable to attend today, but have asked that their voices be heard as they have lived in the neighborhood on the street that directly backs up to the lot for about 40 years now. I have lived in Crestwood neighborhood for 6 years. The acres of forest currently under consideration for rezoning are absolutely essential to the quality of life, property value, and the safety of the residents in my neighborhood. In only the small number of years that I have been living there, the quality of life of the residents has decreased dramatically as the area surrounding the neighborhood has been built up on all sides. Spinks, Somerville Preparatory Academy, and the Berlin G. Myers Extension, to name a few, have all encroached on the woods surrounding our neighborhood, bringing construction noise and an unacceptable increase in traffic. While all of these events have been harmful to our neighborhood, rezoning the land at the end of my street will be damaging beyond repair. The trees are the only thing between us and a very noisy, very busy main road. Right now, they provide privacy and a sound barrier from traffic, and they allow us separation from Main Street. Without them, we will be right on the main road with no separation and privacy for our neighborhood. My roommate works along 61, and in just the last year with the addition of the charter school on Bacon's Bridge, her commute has gone from 20 minutes to almost an hour in rush hour traffic because the traffic on Bacon's Bridge has gotten so congested. And like Bert said, you literally get to my entrance and you can't take a left there from my side. You have to go right and potentially loop around and come back. It's like a nightmare. It's super dangerous right there. I use that entrance multiple times a day. It's a safety hazard. It's been made significantly worse over the years. There are multiple deaths at this spot on the road due to the blind corner. Just last February, a 16-year-old boy was hit and killed in this spot trying to go to church. You guys may also have seen a cross there. If you've been there with the motorcycle helmet on it, it is just a spot with so many deaths. Adding townhomes and additional residents to this street is an incredibly dangerous proposition that will, without a doubt, result in traffic accidents and loss of life. With respect to Treat and Woodman, 30 townhomes, like he said last time, they're not going to give our area the look and feel of downtown Somerville, which is what he claimed. Rather, it will take away what little natural beauty our area does boast and hurt the area further. And I have to ask, does the benefit of these townhomes outweigh the harm it does to the families already living in this area? To me and to my neighbors, the answer is a resounding no. If this proposal goes through, the town is placing financial motivations over the safety of its citizens and the quality of life of the current homeowners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Kim Scott.
Hi there. I just wanted to point out that when I went looking for the information on the website today to just check out any documentation, it said that according to the original Somerville plan, this was zoned as single family housing, and that was meant to be a positive plan, a good plan for Somerville. So what keeps changing in this area where rather than keeping it beautiful, it's now turning into subdivisions, car washes, auto parts stores, and storage units. I'm so tired of that. This is probably the 15th place I've lived. I've lived all over the states, several different countries. So much not going well here. And I don't know why the standard isn't higher. There isn't, it's so hard not to be suspicious that someone is making money somewhere. I really, really suspect that. I don't know what's going on, but you got to say no sometime. This would be a good time to say no. And I appreciated what the young man said about things being rented out. People don't take care of rental properties like they do. People are going to buy this townhome as their cool first home, but then they're going to grow their family. They're going to rent it out. They're going to hold on to it, and it's going to become rental property. And I think that's a very good point. We don't need more of that. We don't need more, what is it, Section 10, whatever that, low-income housing. Why do we have to be that town? Why can't we have more of a moratorium on building like Mount Pleasant does and keep a quality of life? I just think we're doing so many things that aren't positive for this community. Again, there's so many, I live in Walnut Farms. There's so many exits and entrances I have to deal with. Getting out of Walmart is like taking my life in my hands. My daughter lives in Crestwood, coming out of her neighborhood and turning the wrong direction. If you can turn with traffic, you can usually sneak around and get out okay. If you have to go against traffic, I have to be really careful to not get hit. That blind corner is dangerous. And this is going to be 60 more cars. If you go with the 30 townhomes, it really will be 2 people per townhome, typically. Children, I just ask you to use some common sense. I know I'm irritating you, I'm assuming, but please take this into consideration. We want a quality of life here in Somerville that people were attracted to originally. Just because people want to come here doesn't mean we have to make it super easy for them to buy or rent. Let's keep a quality, push them out a little farther. They can live in Ridgeville, they can live in Waltersboro. They might not get to live right here, but we would save our quality of life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay. That being the case, we will close that public hearing and move to the next. A request to rezone TMS number 136-1106-014, located at 1120 Central Avenue, totaling approximately 1 acre, owned by Lorelei Strauss from GR5 General Residential, 5 units per acre, to GB General Business. Is the petitioner present?
I do not believe so.
Nope. Does anyone wish to speak to this? Nope. Then we'll close that and move on to the next. A request to rezone TMS number 14507050055, located at 122 Pebbles Lane, totaling approximately 4.67 acres and owned by Pebbles Brunson from AC Agricultural Conservation to GR5 General Residential, 5 units per acre in Council District 3. Is Ms. Brunson here or a representative?
So I was here less than a year ago. I made the decision to rezone my dad's property from residential to agricultural. At the time, it was a really emotional decision. I was still processing the loss of my father. We had plans there, and his original intent was to sell, and I was trying to hold on to it. And I was stubborn after he passed away and realized that I can't really sustain my original intent with it that we discussed. And I now see the value in honoring the plan of him wanting to sell it. And I just wanted to basically make everything the way it was when he passed away, so I don't feel like I messed everything up. And yeah, it kind of aligns better with all, myself and my family.
In reality.
Right, moving forward. So thank you for your consideration.
There's no one else that wants to address this. We'll close that public hearing and move on to the next one. Proposed amendments to the Somerville Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 5, Subdivision and Infrastructure Standards, Sections 5, 10, 3, Drainages and easements, 5, 11, 2, required improvements for final plat approval, and 5, 11, 3, warranty liability period. Did we have anyone wanting to address that, Jesse?
We can discuss it further, but we do not have anyone who signed up on public comment.
Okay. And we'll close that and move to the next. Let's see, we're down to proposed amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 13. Administration procedures, and 13.3 boards and commissions.
We do not have anyone to speak to that either.
We can close that and move on to the final one, was the proposed amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 13, Administration and Procedures, Section 13.3.5, Design Review Board, Section D, Duties and Responsibilities, Section 13.3.6, Historic District Board of Architectural Review, subsection F, Duties and Responsibilities, Section 13.4.1, Summary, Table of Permit Processes, Section 13.7.1, Zoning Development Permit, Certificate of Compliance, Conditional Temporary Use Permit, subsection A, Section 13.8.1, Certificate of Appropriateness, minor, subsection A. Section 13.8.2, Certificate of Appropriateness, major, subsections A and C, public notification in Section 13.8.3, Commercial Multifamily Industrial Design Review, subsections B, exceptions, and H, decisions finding of fact. Did we have anybody?
We do not.
Then we'll close that and move to new business.
We do not have any street names.
No street names. Okay, then we will
Um,
take up the petitions from the hearing.
yes. Well, I just wanted to briefly, this, as has been pointed out, came before y'all before in March. They thought that they could get sewer from Dorchester County Water and Sewer, which is why they withdrew their application. Turns out that is not, Somerville CPW would not release them to them, so they do have to request annexation to be able to receive sewer. So that's why they're back before us, because it didn't get to council to be either approved or denied, and it has to be one or the other for them to get sewer. And just as an update, they do have, your packet was included an additional potential. That's the original townhome plan. They also have a single family plan. And should it get denied for annexation, they do have zoning in Dorchester County to proceed with a single family detached residential development. And this basically meets those guidelines. I don't know that for sure. Obviously, I don't work for Dorchester County, so I can't tell you if it definitively meets their guidelines, but this is an example of what they would build if the annexation gets denied. And that's assuming it goes through the review process and gets approved. So I just wanted to point out that it can be developed in the county or in the town. They are having to request annexation to get sewer. But if it gets denied annexation, they can still get sewer. It would just be developed in the county. I just want to make that clear. Because I believe
Okay.
that was not clear at the original meeting.
Do I have a motion on the annexation?
I'll make a motion to approve the annexation, but amend the rezoning to GR2.
Last time, you guys voted to deny. And I know that we petitioned for it, but that's no signatures on it. No other people have been sent.
I mean, I do have more emails if you want me to read them. They say the same things, but I
Right.
can certainly
So-
read them.
Let me explain what I'm saying is that we're saying we don't mind them coming into the town. What I'm amending is instead of multifamily residential, that it would be a GR2, which is very similar to what they have now. So if they want to come into the town, that's fine, but we just building townhomes and multifamily would allow apartments if something changed. So that was the thought
Okay,
process.
No, time for me to ask Jesse a question.
Sure.
Jesse, in our packet,
Yes.
the overall zoning and town limits and that sort of thing was not included as far as, is this going to help fill in one of our donut holes?
I mean,
How does it stand as far as surrounding property being in the town of Somerville versus,
most of everything on the opposite side of Bacon's Bridge Road is in the town.
okay,
But this would, it's not surrounded by property that's in the town on that side of Bacon's Bridge Road.
and so it's contiguous because of
It's
properties
contiguous
across.
across the street. Yeah.
Okay,
So let me understand this. We have a motion on the floor to accept the annexation with the proviso that they change the zoning requirement from multifamily to GR2.
Which is what they have now, basically.
Single family residential. Okay,
I second.
and I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Yes. I would like to point out that it's difficult as a property owner if someone has been owning the property for many years, longer than most of you have been living in the town of Somerville. And you cannot deny them the right to sell the property for a different use. And it is difficult to sit here and listen to negative and biased opinions on what might be when you don't really know the facts. This is a citizen run board, and we do make recommendations to town council for approval or disapproval. But we do not have the authority to say definitely yes or no. And we do consider things very carefully.
Okay, anything else? If not, I'll call for the question. All in favor of the motion on the table signify by saying aye.
I
Aye. Those opposed, like sign. The ayes have it, it's unanimous.
Okay, do you all understand what we just did?
A little bit, so,
Okay.
yes, they can use the property and make single family houses, but they're not gonna put in
So
30.
this is the first step in the process. They do not make the decision, they make the recommendation. It goes now it'll go to full council. Yeah,
No, you're
so
fine.
it's
Right.
all right.
So
But
the
yeah,
We're glad you're here.
Right, yeah, the recommendation is that they can come into town, but only build single family detached.
Community man who was here last time was not here today. He was very adamantly against. There was absolutely no way to build on that process.
so it's the sewer company that determines whether they can get sewer or water. He has nothing
Not
to
up
do
to
with
us.
that. And that's why they have to request annexation because it's Somerville CPW sewer. So they have to go before council to either get approval or denial. Either way, they can get sewer from Somerville CPW. They just have to go through the annexation process.
I appreciate that. I understand what you're saying, ma'am, about not being able to tell a property owner what they can do. So I
To some
appreciate-
degree, I mean, we have limitations and that's why we're here. And that's why we have zoning. We've not had countywide zoning. We've had it for many fewer years than you might suspect.
I appreciate that. And I also think that though, even though you're annexing it, you're being unfair and not necessarily a good neighbor to the Crestwood, sorry. But, you know, that's a personal opinion. And then also where we live.
Sir,
Understand.
it's not really a back and forth right now. Y'all had your chance to speak and as I explained, they can develop it in the county without any public input. So let's,
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, if you want to invite.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is request to rezone TMS number 13611060014 located at 1120 Central Avenue, totaling approximately 1 acre and owned by Lorelei Strauss from GR5 General Residential, 5 units per acre to general business.
I just wanted to briefly go over this one. This is the map showing the proposed rezoning. As you can see, it is general business across the street. That's where if I go to the aerial, you can see that's where the Food Lion is and the restaurant across the street. However, immediately adjacent to this property, all of these properties are still residential. There is some neighborhood business, zoned properties a little further away, but immediately adjacent, it is still residential. So as far as a staff recommendation goes, feel that neighborhood business would probably be the more appropriate zoning at this time. But of course, that's up to y'all's discretion on your recommendation.
Quick question, wasn't it commercial before?
No, ma'am, it was annexed. It was previously in the county, but it's always been residentially zoned. There are, like I said, I think the property on the corner here in the county is zoned commercial. And I think a couple of the properties over here in the county are zoned commercial.
But they're zoned closer to our neighborhood business.
I believe it's, yeah, the equivalent of our neighborhood business, or maybe their office institutional. They have a couple different lower intensity commercial zonings.
Now, their purpose for asking for general business was for open storage,
For outdoor storage is my understanding, yes.
which would be fine if we had something that only allowed that, but when you start just opening up to general business, you have a whole nother can of worms to look at. Okay, do I have a motion?
I move to deny this motion based on their particular request for GB.
I have a motion and a second.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor of the motion to deny signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Okay, the request to rezone TMS number 14507055055, located at 122 Pebbles Lane, totaling approximately 4.67 acres and owned by Pebbles Brunson from AC Agricultural Conservation to GR5 General Residential, 5 units per acre in Council District 3. Do I have a motion?
A motion to approve.
I second.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I just want to comment that it was mighty brave of you to request the zoning that you did a year ago or whenever it was. And it was mighty ambitious and we were rooting for you, but we certainly understand.
I'm sorry for your loss.
All right. I'll call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Okay, proposed amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance. Are these, do these dovetail, Jesse?
So not really. That's why they're separated into 3 separate items, because they're kind of completely separate sections.
Okay,
But I will briefly go over each of them in more detail so
Yeah,
that you
please
know
do.
exactly what's being proposed.
if you would, please.
Yes. Get to those. All right, so the first one is in chapter 5, which is the subdivision and infrastructure standards. And engineering staff has recently encountered issues with their requirements because the initial language did not take into account differences in process for commercial and residential developments. And also some additional clarifications were needed. So that's what the changes are doing. This is just clarifying that easements shall be dedicated by plat or deeded, because it can be done either way. In the required improvements for final plat approval, it's separating out residential and commercial developments, because we do have different requirements for different ones. And then also, again, clarifying how the bond or what can be used as a performance guarantee. And then over here, again, providing some different clarifications. I believe this is actually just a edit. And then under D, again, separating between residential developments and commercial developments. If you have any questions, Bonnie is here and can answer if they are more technical questions.
I have a couple of questions, just things that we've kind of come up against. The easements dedicated by plat or as shown on the plat. What if no plat exists? Is that, I mean, we've come up where we've like done a quick claim for an easement.
So I think that's why it says dedicated by plat or deeded to the town. So it can either be done by a deed or a plat.
But then it says as shown on the plat. I didn't know if that was kind of like a catch-all, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't want it to be like, we want to give y'all this easement for maintenance, but we don't want to pay for a survey.
Well, with this being part of the UDO, it would be new development. So there would be a plat for all these situations. Or most of them. I don't, I guess there's some.
I mean, generally, when someone has to do an easement, they're gonna have to do a survey to identify what's already existing, what's there before we can even figure out where the easement is needed.
Mhm.
So,
And that just seems like it could be an extra cost, like if somebody's got flooding going on. I don't know. That was just a concern that that popped up. I don't, and nobody else might have any issue with that. I don't know. And then the other one I had was, where we struck less than 80 days after the 2-year warranty period expires and changing it to until the town releases the surety. Is that like a standard practice now? Is that like normal, realistic?
A lot of times it takes longer to close it out, like that 180 days. So that's why I'm thinking it went to till we release the surety. I wish I had Tom here.
Yeah.
He'd be able to tell you.
Yeah.
I just hate for somebody to be kind of caught up in a loop maybe, and it's like, I just need to get this released, but I can't get it released until, I just don't know what standard practice is, you know, for that, so.
Usually we release it after they make all the repairs. It, anything that's needed. I haven't, had seen there be an issue.
Would hold the fire until they got it done, so.
I mean, those were just two things that kind of caught my attention.
Anything else? Do I have a motion?
I move to approve this change to the UDO.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it.
the next one. The next one is to create, the Cultural Arts Commission. Council recently, adopted a resolution to create a cultural arts district and, the arts has always been an important part of the town, so we wanted to actually create a cultural arts commission. And so this section is really just creating that commission, to promote visual, performing and literary arts, foster cultural heritage, and improve tourism and economic development. And what they'll do is assist the town with, determining potential cultural artistic events, projects, or initiatives, and kind of have input in on that. So it's folks who are actually experienced in the arts will have that input rather than and advise council rather than it just being.
They would, this group would write a charter after they've been appointed.
So as y'all have, they would create their rules and procedures. Yes.
Right. Okay.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I had asked for this probably 10 years ago. Glad to see it finally working its way through the system. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I move for approval.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Ayes have it, it's unanimous.
All right. This next one is a little more
Oh, yeah, this is
detailed.
fun. Yes.
So basically, the idea of these changes is to provide a little more flexibility for staff to make some decisions in terms of DRB and BAR in certain instances where it's appropriate, to try and make it easier for citizens to not always have to go before a board if they're doing something small or something simple. We already have some ways that can be done, but this is, we've experienced, we've been dealing with it more, so we have a better idea of what we feel could reasonably be done at staff level and what could be, what still needs to go before the board. And so that's primarily what all of these changes are addressing, is trying to address efficiency and flexibility and trying to make things more reasonable for citizens and property owners. So this first section, duties and responsibilities with the design review board. So the reason the part that is removed is because it was moved to this section here, 13.8.3B. So it's staying there. It was just moved to a different section. So, and taking away just painting as having to go before the board. If someone's just painting a commercial structure, it can be approved at staff level. Assuming it's not some crazy color. I mean, it would still.
So, as an example, if a commercial building had wanted to repaint, either changing the colors or using the same colors.
So if it was the same
Ordinarily, they
color,
would
it
have
could be
had to go to
approved, but
CDRB.
right now, if a commercial building wanted to paint their whole exterior a different color, it has to go before the board.
And with these changes, would staff be able to approve?
Correct. Yeah. And under signs and murals, just adding the Cultural Arts Commission as coordinating on those, assuming that ordinance gets approved as well. In the historic district duties and responsibilities, just adding where the exceptions are detailed of when it'll go before staff instead of the board. This here for a certificate of appropriateness right now for major changes, so ones that do have to go before the board. Right now, this is the only board other than this one that has to do a newspaper advertisement. And this one also, the board also has to mail to adjacent property owners. I don't know the last time we've received a call because someone saw it in the newspaper ad. Most people don't pay attention to the newspaper much anymore, and particularly don't pay attention to the newspaper advertisements. So that, we have to do it for rezonings and that sort of thing because it's required by state law. It is not required by state law here. It was just an additional thing that was added. But we feel like it's honestly a waste of taxpayers' money to spend money on those advertisements. Same thing with the mailings, about half, a good portion of them get returned to us as undeliverable for some reason or another. And rarely do we have people actually call to inquire based on the mailings. Most of the time it's because of the signs that are posted that we post in the yard, which we will still continue to do for the historic district. And we actually, I don't know if anyone noticed, but made the signs bigger that we use. So we do now have a larger sign. It's bright yellow. So we tried to make them more noticeable. They're also double-sided, so you can see them from both directions now. So we did try and make that much more noticeable for folks.
I do appreciate that.
Yes,
That's helpful.
That's
Yeah.
helpful. It's hard to read them
And
when
we've
you're
been meaning to do
driving
that
by.
for a while. We were just waiting until our other signs kind of got beat up because it's not inexpensive to buy those signs.
exactly where would this demolition of historic structures fall into the,
So demolition is still under as going before the board. This chart just tells you the public notice. And so instead of having, would just remove the need for it to be posted in the newspaper or have it mailed to adjacent property owners. Because as we found, that's generally not an effective means of notifying people that it's going to happen or that it's going before a board.
since the town of Somerville has a preservation society with it, that operates within the town, do they get notice of?
I am
post?
pretty sure they are. You can also sign up on our website to receive all of our agendas. and choose which ones you want, I am pretty positive the Preservation Society, multiple members receive our agendas.
Because I certainly think they should be
Yeah.
notified anytime one is threatened.
So that's what that change is. Here, so we did, like I said, we did already have certain things that could be approved at staff level. Oh, this is the zoning development permit. We're just adding that the painting or exterior changes for commercial properties outside the historic district that don't meet the threshold for DRB review would submit for this type of permit, so that staff would still review them. It would just be done at staff level rather than at board level.
And that level of review though is greater than 50%.
For DRB, yes, it's if if a street facing facade is being changed by greater than 50%, then it does go before the board. Now, with these changes, it would have to be more than just the paint color changing. But paint color would still come before staff just to make sure that it wasn't something like happened a few years ago with the Moneyman Pond where it was a neon.
Like that
Color.
unacceptable yellow.
So we do have in the chapter 4 that it can't be bright and garish colors. So this is where, this is the type of permit they would apply for. It's just a $30 staff review permit. It's a pretty simple, it's used for a lot of different smaller types of things. And then with the BAR, the certificate of appropriateness minor, that's the one we currently have where staff can review, but it was primarily, non-building oriented stuff. We are adding a few new structures there, or relocation of structures, of small structures, 400 square feet or less, that are not visible from the right of way or are not being moved to a more visible location. And then also added that mechanical screening, dumpster enclosures that are not part of a larger project can be approved at staff level as well. For the next section, really the change is just moving the exception language to the top there and deleting it just from here. Like I said, here, we're removing the requirement for the newspaper ad or the adjacent property owner mailing. And then the last section that we're proposing changes to is the commercial design review board, the exceptions, and adding the one that was already in there that got moved. So it got moved to here, the whole thing with the zone PL. And then adding new accessory structures that are not part of a larger project that are 400 square feet or less in size, such as dumpster enclosures, mail kiosks, storage sheds, etc. So those could be approved at staff level rather than having to go before the board. And then enclosure and temporary or permit weatherization of existing structures not visible from any right of way. So that's like if somebody has a porch in the rear and they want to enclose it or weatherize it by putting, the panels to allow people to sit in there when it's really hot or really cold, that could be approved at staff level rather than having to go before the board. And then in decisions, findings, and facts, just stating that minor changes to materials, details, footprint, and height of previously DRB approved plans are subject to staff discretion for approval unless specifically required as a condition of the DRB approval. So that's, when a project gets approved, there's lots of details and things that perhaps when it actually gets to construction, maybe something that's either not feasible or has to change slightly because of some mechanical issue or something of that sort. This would allow staff to approve those types of minor changes rather than it having to go back before the board for those types of changes. Unless, again, as it states, unless it was something that the DRB specifically said, this is a condition of your approval, you have to do this, then it would have to go back before the board to get approved for that.
And staff members making these approvals are in your department?
Yes, ma'am. Primarily for this, it would be Becca. She reviews the commercial permits at this time. So that is all of those changes. I know it's a lot. But again, the idea here was to create some greater efficiency in our reviews. while still making sure we kept the high quality of development within the town.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I have a couple of things.
All right.
It's, I don't know if you want to go through them one by one and vote on them, or what's the easiest, like,
We need a motion
We need a
Okay.
motion.
first.
um,
I move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second discussion.
all right. So a lot of these changes, I understand for efficiency, but I also worry about accountability to the public. So the painting, I understand, can be a pain if somebody just wants to paint a building. But also having exceptions in here creates some confusion. So as a user of the UDO, having to find exactly where everything is and make sure everything is covered is already kind of a cluster sometimes. So I would amend to remove that painting where painting is not included. The double negative alone was like, I'm not exactly sure what this is trying to say, but just that it's only painting that's not part of a larger project. I got that, but I think painting a whole commercial structure is worth coming in front of some members of the community.
Well, that would depend on whether there was a color change or not. If there's no color change, there's no requirement other than pulling the permit for the actual work being done, correct?
Correct. If there's no color change, then it doesn't. Now, admittedly, in the historic district, staff can already approve paint color.
Okay.
So this is just outside the historic district.
You want me to keep going?
Yep.
Okay. The notifications, I understand that maybe people don't read the newspaper as much where the mail, some of the mail comes back, but I think notifications promotes transparency. And right now, with the town growing as fast as it is and everything's changing, I think limiting notification, this is probably not a good time for that. So I would strike that change. Then number 11, I was trying to think of some wording that would make that where I could be in favor of that, but I'll come back to that one. So public notification, I would strike the getting rid of newspaper and adjacent property owner mailings. There's been some properties that have come before us or, in recent time that we have out of town people, so they wouldn't see the signs posted out. And I do appreciate the bigger yellow signs. They are fantastic. And the last thing is I would strike that last whole sentence where minor changes that have been approved or minor changes on it that they need. If he's already approved a plan, I think that it would need to go back before the DRB. So I would strike that whole last in H. Height is a big deal. Footprint's a big deal.
Yeah, that's true.
Materials are a big deal. So that's my comments. Sorry to make that difficult.
That's all right.
I'll say ever served on DRB for a number of years. I think all of the changes are fantastic. There's so many times when I was a member of the design review board and we would approve something. And at some point before it actually went to full construction, it would have to come back before us because they changed the door from red to blue, or they moved one window. Or they moved the location of the door on the front of the building. And to me, it was more of a hassle for the developer to have to come back before us, wait another 30 days just to get an approval made that should have been able to have been done at staff level.
And I understand that like a door change color is not in materials, footprint, or height. So maybe we strike details. Or leave details, minor changes to details. from a previously approved plan. But I think moving a building, a commercial building needs to, that's been approved in a certain place would need to be looked at.
Well, it's probably fairly subjective to say minor, who, you know,
Mhm.
what is deemed as minor and what's not. Reluctant on that too.
Okay. Anything else? No.
Oh, I've got a question. What's the possibility of reworking this one and coming back to it again?
What,
With-
I'm sorry, I missed your question.
What's the possibility of tweaking this to address some of Jillian's concerns and then coming back
I mean, if,
another meeting?
if,
We have,
I
motion
mean,
on
it sounds like the
floor.
only one that would be tweaked would be this one. The rest would just be removed. Based on what was
We-
said, correct?
We have a motion on the floor that we need to vote on. We can vote on it and recommendations can be given to staff that they can look at before it goes to council. We can vote it down. You can make, if you're ready to craft an amendment, you can make an amendment to the motion.
Joe, was yours, I took yours as an amendment to the motion.
Yeah,
so-
that is what I would amend to remove the notification removal.
Yeah, I had that, her motion was to amend to remove the painting, remove the removal of the notification requirements, and to strike the wording regarding minor changes.
All right,
But
so that's an amendment.
that's her motion
Do we
to
have a second
amend.
for the
Yeah.
amendment?
So it needs a second, I believe.
I second the amendment. Can I second the amendment after having made the motion for the first?
Oh, yeah.
I second the amendment.
Okay. So you have all the nuts and bolts on that one, Jess? Then we'll vote on the amendment.
As amended.
We'll vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed,
Aye.
carries 3-1. Now we'll vote on the motion as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Aye. Motion carries 3-1.
All right. I believe that's all I have for today. Yes, that's all I have.
Make a motion to amend. I mean, to adjourn. Want an amending.
Can I have a second?
I second.
All in favor? Aye. Stand adjourned.